Okay, so we are live. Welcome to the LD Town Hall. This is going to be an informal town hall where we just collect feedback on LD. Just to remind you, we have several wings of LD now. There's LD Talent, which is a talent network of developers that we've vetted who are incentivized to engage in lifelong learning. In addition, we have started a new wing called LD Ventures, which is allowing developers in our network not only to get matched to clients, but also to start their own startup ideas within the umbrella LD organization. And so for that program, I'm going to be putting in a lot of my time in mentoring developers to develop their ideas, like I'm doing with Jehoshaphat and Vatsal right now. And so it's a pleasure to have all of you, McDavid, Abi, Bhagwan, Akinsanya, Emmanuel, Jehoshaphat, Dennis, and it's really great to have you here. And I'd love to get some of your feedback on the experience of LD, any ways we could improve either the talent or ventures version, and just going to take a second to hear some of your feedback and take some notes. All right, I had a backup plan in case no one had anything to say to start out. So I was going to share a few tidbits about just little stories from my youth and how they might relate to entrepreneurship. So one of the things I'm working a lot with one of the LD Ventures uh, entrepreneurs is planning ahead of time before starting an application. So the entrepreneur, he wants to build an application that's related to remote work presentations and such. And we discussed that in the last town hall. Now, one of the things that we're sort of working together is this balance between jumping right in to a project and carefully planning and looking at the competitors and the market. And it sort of reminds me of this story from when I was 3 years old. When I was 3 years old, I loved to run around the house. And one time, what I did was I was running so fast that I didn't look where I was going, and I ran straight into a table. And at that time, I was the height of a table. And so that was the first time I actually got stitches. And the only time I got stitches is I ran straight into a table and I hit my head and flesh came out, and then I had to get 3 stitches. And what I learned from that anecdote is not just that 3-year-olds are sometimes really dumb, but also that sometimes when we come to business problems as an entrepreneur, what we do is we run straight in and say, oh, I'm just going to build this product. I have a unilateral vision. I'm going to build this product and I'm going to push it out to the market. And sometimes when we do that without considering things like the market, the competitors, the design feedback, what happens is that we get into a situation where we just flop completely and just spend a lot of energy and just everything explodes and nothing works. And so that is one anecdote that I wanted to share. I was wondering if any of the rest of you had any thoughts on this analogy. No problem. I have another story. Another story is about timing. So I was actually on a bus. I was on a bus going from Mumbai in India to Pune in India. So I was visiting India at that time. And the bus would stop for restroom breaks. And uh, I mean, when it stopped, everyone got off the bus. Everyone got off the bus and they prepared in advance because that was the right time to go. And the first time on the way from, actually, it was not from Mumbai to Pune, it was from Hyderabad to Pune. And the first time they got the restroom break, the bus driver said, everyone get off. This is your time to go. We're not going to have other chances. And that time I was like, I don't have to go. And so I didn't go. And everyone else went. And then on the way during the 12-hour drive or whatnot, In the middle, I had to make the bus driver stop and let me get off. And then that was a timing mismatch. And so I had to stop the entire bus of 30, 40 people to go. And then I was thinking, okay, maybe this is just a one-off incident. I didn't learn anything from it. And then on the way back from Shirdi it was like, yeah, from Shirdi or Pune, I don't remember which. On the way back to Hyderabad, the exact same thing happened. He stopped the bus and said, "This is your time to go." And again, I said, "I don't have to go." And then I had to stop the bus. And I remember the bus driver saying something in Telugu like, "Mallana," or something like that. I had to stop the bus again. I stopped a bus of 40 people again to get out. And so, what is the thing that we learned from this story is that it's timing. Timing is super important. So for instance, right now, in life, timing is so important. So instance, if there's an opportunity right in front of you, like right now, I'm saying LD Ventures has a fund and we're ready to spend money on cultivating your startup ideas milestone by milestone during the planning phase, and then we will pay you at your set hourly rate to start an app, to start a company of your own passion. This is the time to jump on that. If you are an entrepreneur and you wanted to start an application, don't wait down the road once a bunch of other people are starting applications. This is the time to sort of step into that opportunity. So that is my second story. And I'll give another story on timing. So timing in terms of application development. So timing, and welcome, Catherine. Nice to hear you and see you here as well. Timing is another thing. I remember during the Stanford graduation speech. The Stanford graduation speech, the speaker was Bill Gates, actually, in 2014. And I was graduating that year, graduating early from the program. And I remember him walking down the aisle. It was an outdoor aisle. And there were only a few seconds when he would be close enough for me to grab a selfie. And I remember all these other graduating seniors around me nervous about, like, how are they gonna, or should they get a picture of him? Will they get in trouble? What's going on? And I remember just thinking for a split second, I only have like 4 seconds to decide whether I'm going to try to get a selfie with him or not. And because he's just going to walk by and I have like 1 second to take that selfie. And my instinct said, you know what, I'm just going to do it. And I did it. And I got it on. And that is something that I probably never have the opportunity to do again. So I'm so glad I did it. So again, a thing with entrepreneurship is really timing, and especially when you're developing applications. Now the world is changing. The new normal is causing things to change in terms of markets. So again, timing is important. And I'm curious if any of you had any thoughts on the idea of timing in terms of technology or application development or startups. No problem. I have a last story. And one of the things of this last story is, it's a quote by this famous South American. Abi, you put a question in the chat. Yeah, Abi, so you're asking which parts of LD do you want feedback on? We'd love feedback on the talent network to start out with, just our program for developers to join in, and also our program for clients to come in and find better developers. So yeah. So I will let you think about that. And in that time, I'll tell this last tidbit that I have. There's this idea by this like crazy South American politician um, that I followed, and he also like was involved in crazy businesses and things. But he said something that's kind of crazy. He said everyone has their price, and when we think about that, is that really true? I've had different ideas around this. It is true that if you incentivize people to do things, say with financially or through accolades or whatnot, it does incentivize them a little bit. For instance, we incentivize a little bit of lifelong learning through the monetized blog projects. Essentially, it's $40 or $50 if you post a blog and learn something new, and it seems to work in a sense. And again, with the LD Ventures, it's not all free. There are milestones, and you can submit your idea, and and each milestone is like $5 per tab of that spreadsheet, and then you get paid to work on your idea. For instance, in our training milestones for developers who come into LD, so in the developers who come into LD, there's also like incentives to learn new things, complete the training milestones, for instance, the demo projects and the exams and whatnot. But one of the things that I've learned is that you can't incentivize people just with money, and sometimes it's about UX. Sometimes a good UX and UI can incentivize to people to do things that money or referral codes or credits never could. And sometimes it's about understanding what their intent is, and so yeah, it's an interesting thing that I don't completely agree with that quote that everyone has their price. Sometimes people's like sort of activation threshold can completely change based on UX, based on UI, based on empathy to their motivations and such. So with that said, I have another question in here from Dennis, which says, LD Ventures be creating a product under the LD umbrella. Thank you for hanging out, Abi. So Dennis has asked, who owns the product with LD Ventures? And so let me specify what the criterion is. So if you want to build your app, this is also posted in the LD engineers channel, but basically the product is owned. It's owned by LD with some caveats. So we sign a profit sharing agreement, which is that the entrepreneur who starts it gets 65% of the profits, with LD keeping 35% of the profits. And then also, while you're working on the project, you work at your own rate. Now, that being said, that is the current arrangement that's proposed. But that is the reason why that's proposed is that if you have developers from all over the world and they want to, say, build applications that target the US market, it's not easy to target the US market unless you have like a corporate structure set up. And so essentially LD is lending you its corporate setup because we're already filed as a Delaware C Corp, and with we're in Wisconsin and whatnot. But if you're able to create a US corporation, you're able to set up things in the United States, then there's alternate arrangements. So you could just reach out to me and we could set up some alternate arrangements for you to own the corporation. And then LD might be able to sign a safe agreement or something like that. So if you don't want to do the legal work, then LD would be a product under LD, and we'd sign a legal agreement with the entrepreneur getting 65% of the profits and LD keeping 35%. If you know the US legal system for setting up a business, then what you could do is you could propose to me an alternate route, and we'll see whether that makes sense. A more traditional type of investment. Dennis, does that answer your question?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joshua Fadia. So, you were talking about the registration for companies like Stripe, Atlas. They allow you to register a Delaware C Corp from anywhere in the world. So people who have taken advantage of that or have already set in motion that process of registering a C Corp in Delaware, what is how is it going to be after they do that registration if they already have a Delaware C Corp?
Yeah, so if you have a Delaware C Corp, the way that LD plans to invest is we still want you to hire from the network and such like that. So we would then, the way it goes is after you finish the tabs, we would invest in terms of LD credits, like 10 hours of work, 20 hours of work. And then you would work, or you could hire other people within LD to work on your project. And then, and we would sign a sort of like safe agreement and a profit sharing agreement. But you would own the product in that sense. If you already have the Delaware C Corp, then we would structure it so that you would own the product. If you don't have the Delaware C Corp, then we would structure it so that LD owns the product and it's just the profit sharing agreement.
Oh, okay. So with the Delaware C Corp, and then how will the structure be if the person gets maybe external funding, like from an angel or from a VC along the line?
What was that?
Like when an investment comes in from an angel investor after LD or a VC, LD will still play a part in everything, right?
LD will simply what?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah. I can hear you, Jehoshaphat.
Okay. Will the structure that is set up, will it allow for raising external funding from either angel investors or venture capitals later along the line?
Yeah. So if you want to set it up in a way that it's the Delaware C Corp rather than under the LD umbrella, let me share an article that might help. So you can do that. That's an article that might help. So then the way we do it is for each set of funds that LD like for each set of like if we fund 10 hours or 20 hours into your project, then we would calculate like how much money that accounts for, and then we'd sign a safe agreement, basically saying that we have the right to that much equity in the company, and at the next round of financing and such like that. But we would
Yeah.
also sign a profit sharing agreement, because LD would still have the profit sharing agreement with 35% of the profits of the company. So it's 35% of the profits. And in the case of you setting up the Delaware C Corp, we would also set up a safe agreement for equity holding by LD.
Oh, okay. I understand it. Thank you.
Yeah, those are good questions. In fact, I think that I should make a note of that option. So essentially, um, right now the message is clear if LD is owning the product. But if you want to set up your own Delaware C Corp, one, you would have to set up the Delaware C Corp, and then two, you would have to if you set up the Delaware C Corp and you're able to do that from Nigeria or from India or whatnot, then we would sign a profit sharing agreement with the Delaware C Corp. We would sign we would we would create an agreement for every set of hours that we fund into your project. And remember, we're funding LD credits. So we're funding you to work on your own project or other developers in the network to work on your own project. And so when we fund hours like that, we would want we would take the dollar amount of that amount funded, and we would basically create a safe agreement that would say that we have the right to that much equity in a future round of funding. Um, does that make sense, Jehoshaphat?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Yeah, thank
Yeah. Um, yeah. So the SAFE agreement would ensure that in a future round of funding, LD would own what it deserves based on how many hours of work that LD funded, in addition to the profit sharing agreement. Um, and yeah, that's interesting. Um, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that that would work. And so I shared an article in the chat how Crunchbase does it, but yeah,
because I was asking because I was part of Y Combinator Startup School,
mhm.
and then I got some of the credits they gave to startups that participated in the startup school, like discount on Stripe Atlas
Mhm.
company registration in Delaware. So since I already kickstarted the process before this, I wanted to show how it fits into everything.
Yeah, I think that it is important for us to set up a structure so that if you want, you can build it just as part of LD. If you want to set up your own Delaware City Corp, um, for instance, to raise money from other angels, then what would be necessary is um, for us to sign a profit sharing agreement and for us to also do a safe style investment for each set of funded hours we give. Now, the thing is that another sort of thing that we had in mind with LD was because LD has a domain authority and Alexa rank that's fairly high, like I think it's around 70K or so in the world and around 50, so yeah, maybe 17K in the US. So we're fairly high domain authority site. And so we were thinking that some of the projects might, so first of all, like if you think about things like deployment of the applications and such, we were thinking we would just host them on a subdomain if they're part of LD. And if you're planning to host them on a separate domain, there are uh, certain advantages and disadvantages. So a certain advantage is that it's on your own domain. I mean, you get to have it on your own domain. A disadvantage is that you don't get the domain authority of LD. Uh, Advantage of having it on your own domain is that, you know, if you have some of those cloud credits from YC Startup School or some of the other things, then you could use them. A disadvantage is the LD is only going to fund hours through LD. I mean, so you'd have to pay for the cloud hosting. So then an advantage would be to host it as a subdomain of LD. An advantage of using the LD blog to spread some of your things related to your project would be, again, the domain authority and the SEO ranking. A disadvantage is, of course, then it's not on your domain, it's on LD's domain and your subdomain, for instance, or such. So those are some of the trade-offs that we would have to think about, and each one we'd have to decide based on the current situation. So uh, maybe having a more structured arrangement. So you said that the sort of profit sharing, safe agreement for funded hours, the legal stuff made sense, but for the actual logistics of hosting content, for instance, it would have to be a case by case decision based on the individual entrepreneur's project. And so I think that that is something that we could set up a more organized spreadsheet to logistically do at any point. What are your thoughts, Jehoshaphat, on that?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay. Do you know which route that you're thinking about? Did you want to host yourself or did you want to host on a subdomain of LD? And then in terms of content, were you, yeah, thinking of the LD
Yeah,
blog or were you thinking about your own
it-
domain?
it's a lot of work doing everything on my own domain, and then
Yeah,
going to work in it. So
Yeah.
It's better to take advantage of what's already available to
Sorry, can you repeat that?
say taking advantage of what is available in LD is a better option for me.
Yeah, another thing is just LD would help with the marketing as well. Uh, so yeah, we'd have to, if you set up your own Delaware C corp, then we would have to basically so LD is not just helping with for instance things like hosting on a subdomain or funding hours for the project. LD would also help with, like, for instance, my time and also my co-founder's time. We will help you contact people, for instance, within the United States, and help you with the cold emailing. For instance, we have a Rocket Reach account, and we would help get email addresses of different people within the United States that you want to target and such. And so it would be a little bit, we would have to structure it so that LD is compensated for that contribution if you set it up as a Delaware C corp. And so we can absolutely do that. But I think that one of the things that this is sort of feedback for me is that we need to set up both choices, and also like some way of, uh, if you start as part of LD, there should be a sort of streamlined process for you to separate it out as your own company at some point in time. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, yes.
Ah, did you have any ideas on how to separate it out?
I've not given that a thought yet.
So
So it's
then,
something that's going to require some thinking.
yeah, maybe I could add like a separation clause tab in the spreadsheet, and so that way there's a clear avenue for separation, uh, and such. Dennis, you asked, how does it change if my target market is here in Kenya? So for the most part, we are focused on majority world developers who want to start companies targeting the US or global markets. So if you're starting something local within your country like Kenya, there are a lot of other Kenyan venture capitalists and such that will be interested in what you're doing. And so you could just talk to them. What LD is here to do is just recognize that like 2/3 of the wealth of the world is in just the United States and Europe, for instance. And most of the 2/3 of the wealth of the world, more than 2/3 of the wealth of the world, is in the developed countries of the world. So considering that there's so much high quality talent in the majority world or the developing world, we want to help people in majority world countries essentially build apps that and software that targets uh, global markets. And considering that most of the global market is in the developed world, then developed markets in terms of wealth.
So for a developer working on the project, but you have maybe other team members that you are working with who are not in LD, how can someone incorporate working with them while working on a project? Let's say their compensation.
Yeah, then I mean, obviously, if they're working with you, they're probably good, and if they're good, we want them as part of LD. So you could just have them join LD, and
Okay, maybe somebody who is not an engineer, maybe someone like a product manager.
that's fine.
Okay,
That's fine. It it
okay,
it doesn't really matter whether they're an engineer or a product manager or whatnot. Um,
excellent.
yeah. In fact, there are designers on our network. There are uh, data scientists and other roles, and a couple people with experience in project management. I think that one of the things maybe that I'm getting feedback on is just, uh, if you're starting your own app, right, then you want some sort of clarity that it's your app, right? It's not that you have guarantee of that. If the app is successful, you're going to get that compensation. And yes, we'll sign a HelloSign legal agreement saying that you will get 65% of the profits of that application, but you want something more concrete that guarantees that, for instance, if you want to separate, you can. And so I think that gives me some feedback. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
Yeah. So would it be helpful if I actually, when I announce about like this program, I also include the legal agreements for one, the profit sharing agreement, and two, the separation agreement? Would that be helpful? And the in safe agreements?
Definitely.
Okay, why don't, whenever I post it, I'll actually include the serious legal agreements so that people understand that LD respects your ideas and respects that you should be the owner of them. So I mean, LD is getting compensated well, right? By the profit sharing agreement. Um, Yeah. So so it should be mutually beneficial, and I'll try to include the actual transparent legal agreements um, accordingly. Yeah. Okay. So that was good on LDV. Any feedback on LDT, LD talent? Anything we can do to better support you as developers or clients in making sure that you get presented in the best way? Yeah, I can sign you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so actually I have a question. Can we have an option for more like this monthly payment instead of like this per hour payment, right? So you can set an option where or you can set a preference where you want your payment to be monthly. And then also for the per hour payment, can we have like a section where we can set um, or negotiate with the client? So when you get matched with clients, you can negotiate what's it called, the per hour fee, payment fee. Yeah, so that's it.
Yes. So for the first part, monthly payment, uh, you okay. So there's a few things here. If you request your client to be able to track higher value work sessions, you can track up to 8-hour work sessions, which is one day of work. So you don't have to track every half an hour, but the client has to request it. And so essentially, that's like a daily, like, this is what I did thing. So that's the bigger work sessions part. Now, with respect to monthly payment, what the way our system works is we pay 3 to 7 days after the client approves the work session. You wanted it in lump sum on a monthly scale. Um, is that maybe that's like a
It's more like,
mode or something that you want, a mode for that so that
yeah,
the payments accrue?
yes, no, so on the LD website, right, we have like well, there's a section where you can buy out developers, right? There's also a section where you have this per hour payment. So I was asking if we can have an option aside the per hour payment. I mean, the regular, I don't know, it's done anywhere else, but I know in Nigeria you have this monthly payment. So you're technically hired by the company, and then you should be available to do like whatever work session, or I mean whatever what's it called, fixes you have to do to your software, and then you're hired for that particular, you're hired in that particular content, and then they're paying you monthly. I mean, is it possible to have that on the audit talent?
As an option, yeah. I think that we could we could try that. So So can you repeat that once actually?
So I said you have a month. So now, okay, let me just like give you a scenario. So you're applying for a job,
Mm-hmm.
and then they put the estimate the range of the yearly salary they're going to pay you when they hire you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say $30 per year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think they pay you monthly. When they hire you, they pay you monthly, irrespective of each other work session you what's it called, like your record, something like that. Can we have that option also in LD Talent?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that it's possible to add that. Uh, do you know if clients want that right now?
I wouldn't know, but I mean, we could have it there and let them like pick it. So they have the option of selecting to pay per hour or what's it called, monthly and all of that. I mean, it's an option, so they can decide to select that or not.
Okay, that makes sense. We're planning to add a yearly salary on the profiles, so we could add a monthly as well. Now, to logistically be able to put them in yearly or monthly mode, one thing I'd ask is why would they want to hire through LD? Why wouldn't they just buy out and hire? If they're doing monthly level of payment, why wouldn't they just pay the buyout fee? Wouldn't it be more economical to just do the buyout then?
All right, so for the buyout, right? Is there an option? So for clients, do they get to select either the per hour fee or the buyout fee?
Yeah, so the buyout fee is just 1K for international. And so the developers set their own rate for, hourly and also yearly, but we don't surface those yet, but we will surface the yearly rate. The client, if somebody's like charging, I don't know, if somebody sets their rate to 20 an hour, then the client gets charged 25 because the cut is 20% of what the client pays with a minimum of $5. So if somebody is working full time, that's 40 hours a week times 4.3 weeks a month. That's 172 hours multiplied by LD profit, which is $5 an hour on that. That's already 860. So it makes sense that if a client is planning on working full time with the developer, and most of our clients, they want to do things legally, like they're venture backed businesses, US corporations. They don't want to like sort of take the developer off the platform because they want to do it legally because none of these venture companies want to get sued afterwards, basically. So they do things legally and they pay the buyout fee. It makes sense that once you get to the level of you're hiring someone full time for over a month, then they just pay it just makes sense to pay the buyout fee. But I guess we can still add it as an option if you think it would be helpful.
Yeah.
Did I misunderstand anything that you said?
No, I think it's fine. Yeah.
Okay. I've made a note of that we can add a monthly hire option.
Yeah.
The other point
So
that, oh, sorry. He also talked about negotiating with the clients on the hourly rate. Did you want to say anything about that before Jehoshaphat goes on? Okay, son.
Yeah. So what I mean by negotiating is the fact that I think we should be able to set a range, more like you can set you want $10 to $15 per hour, and then the client gets to like I don't know, specify the amount or specify the amount they can afford to pay, something like that. And then I mean more like an offer. They're offering to pay this particular amount per hour. And then when you get the notification on Slack, you also see the offer, what's it called? The client is offering you, and then you can decide to accept that or decline it.
So negotiation is possible on the platform. We don't actively advertise it in the way that you're describing right there, but it is possible. So we normally ask developers to consult LD staff about like pricing, negotiation, whatever. But basically, since LD is super transparent about its percentage cut and its approximate profit margin as well, which is different from its percentage cost cut because we have costs of the business, right? And these are all advertised on our landing page. Essentially, you can feel free to negotiate with clients, but you should negotiate. You know the client rate, right? It's just we take a 20% cut with a minimum of $5 of what the client pays. So you can negotiate with the clients whatever rate that you would like, if you need to. That's totally fine. But adding a specific feature for it is an interesting idea, and I've made a note of it as well.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Jehoshaphat?
The project description section. I don't know. I feel that sometimes the description that clients give is too short, or it's not as descriptive enough for you to decide whether you want to accept the invite or not. And
Okay.
then when you get to talk with them, you realize that what was posted is either totally different. What they really wanted is totally different from what they wrote, or they could not really convey what they wrote on their project description. But at that point, when you get to realize that what they needed is different from what they wrote, how can you, if there's a way it can be changed, or is there a way they can go back to change the description so that it reflects what they really want after they've had a conversation with the developer?
Yes. So you are saying that the project description could be better.
Yeah.
Here are the things that we're planning to add right now in the new design that we're implementing. Expected timeline of 1 week to 6 months, times I prefer to communicate with the developer, how many developers they need, how many hours a week they expect the developer to work, whether they're looking for contractors or full-time employees or co-founders, and how many hours of work they can fund based on their current budget. But the thing is that these don't actually address your concern, which is about the detail level of the project. But you also have to understand from the client side, they are trying to start an application and maybe they're in stealth mode. Maybe they are a client that cares about their IP. They don't want to reveal their idea, etc. And so it's important for them to also be protected as well. So do you have any ideas for how LD can build the trust between the client and the developer? I mean, during the platform, we're trying to do that. We're trying to build the trust between the client and the developer. But when they're filling out the form on our website, won't the client? How do you address the fact that the client is probably concerned about their idea being private as well? They only want to share it with the developer once they trust the developer and such.
I'm thinking something like maybe they have a session where they can create a simple scenario or use case. So if somebody can type in the description that they want a VR app, and then I accept their invite, or I accept the interview invite based on the fact that I saw the person wanted to do something around VR. And then at the point of us having a conversation during the interview, I realized that what the person wanted is 3D. It's something like a third person shooter or a first person shooter kind of game. But because the client did not really understand what they wanted, they mentioned it as VR. So I accepted the invite based on, okay, this client wanted to do something in VR. But having the conversation, we realized that it's a first person shooter or a third person shooter kind of thing. So if after making the description in the project description that they want a VR, maybe there's a place they can just write a scenario so that somebody can get an idea of the use case, the scenario the app will be used. So if the client has said we want something where on a computer somebody can move in a 3D space, you have just given me an idea that will make me understand that okay, it's not VR application that this person wants to build. But when you just mention you are building something VR related in your description, and there's no scenario, or we have to get to the interview stage before I get to really understand. At that point, I may not want to back out, or if I back out of it of the project, I don't know how it all plays all together.
Does it? Yeah. Do you have any ideas on how we could make it better?
We can request the client to provide a test scenario or a usage scenario for the products or the app they want, or whatever they want to build. That is beside the description they give.
Mm-hmm. Does anyone else have? Welcome, by the way, Koloole. Thank you so much for joining, and Kalumi. It's nice to see both of you here. In addition to Catherine, who's a client on our network, and everyone else. I don't know. I don't know how to solve this problem. This is a very tricky problem. If anyone has any recommendations, let us know.
Can you, as a client, I can hear what you're saying and issues of a disconnect between an engineer and a client, and perhaps in further, for you to get a better understanding of what the client wants, maybe the client has to provide information such as, this is my project, and it's kind of like this other project. So maybe if they show samples, or at least one sample. Can you hear me? Does that help?
Yeah, that's yeah, a sample of something it's like.
Yes, I want to build this. My idea is kind of like this other thing that already exists. And so, and also it's maybe just for the engineer to dig a little bit more, ask just more questions of, don't be afraid to ask questions to the client.
Yeah, maybe including a question in our client onboarding sign up form that asks about what is this like? With technology wise, what is it like a marketplace? Is it a SaaS application, or even more specifically, is it similar to Airbnb or?
Yeah, I think even like naming an existing project, what you said, it's like Airbnb, but it does da 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 da. It's like I don't know, Pottery Barn, but we're going to have more comparative, whatever you think that you would need to get a clear sense for you. From the engineer's perspective. Maybe a question for the clients could be is, what are the functionalities, the main functionalities, or name 3 functionalities that your project will have.
Okay. Yeah. That's really helpful, Catherine. Thank you. And that also resolves the issue of the client maybe not wanting to reveal too much about their project as well, right, when they're submitting a request. they sort of want to talk to someone first. That's helpful. Okay, yeah, this has been wonderful. This was a pretty low-key webinar, just collecting feedback. And anyone else have anything to say? All right. Well, I promised low key and shorter than average, so we can conclude. It was great hearing about all this detailed feedback, and we'll work on it. Thank you very much. All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye, Catherine. Bye, Dennis.
Bye.
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 Pushpet, Kolawole, Pulumi.
Thanks for
Okay,
the
fine.
clarification.
Of course. Yeah,
Bye.
of course, Kolawole. How are you doing? Kolawole.
Good.
Good.
Yeah.
Good to see you here. All right. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.